It's all going down. Tyrone Bowman live. Welcome to the conversation. Welcome to the program on this evening. We're just getting started here on tonight. A couple news stories I'm going to be talking about. Hopefully, it makes a difference in some people's lives and maybe not. We'll find out as we go along with this particular story. This is first story here. Thank you to all the individuals who have subscribed to Tyrone Bowman. We appreciate it. I found an article in the coming from the Reuters news agency. And this article was written by Andrew Godsward. The headline reads, "Jury finds, quote, profound, end quote, missteps in the United States probe of FBI ex-chief James Comey." As you know, James Comey is the former FBI director, and it was during that particular time he was sworn in and he testified before a Senate Intelligence Committee hearing on Russia's alleged interference in the 2016 U.S. presidential election on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. And that was June 8th of 2017. So since then, many things have happened. And as you know, he has been indicted for alleged crimes. So as we're getting started on Tyrone Bowman Live, we're going to be talking about this in this particular video. I'd like to know your thoughts about it as I'm talking about it in real time coming from you in the comment section. I want to thank you all for subscribing to Tyrone Bowman Live. I appreciate you subscribing. Now let's get right down to it. So according to the Reuters news agency, here is the summation, then I'll get into the body of alleged evidence. One, the judge orders grand jury materials to Comey lawyers. So evidently, his lawyers have not had access to the grand jury indictment materials, and the presiding judge said, you know what, you have to turn those materials over to Comey's lawyers, and the judge's ruling cites the government misconduct in the Comey probe. And Comey's faces false statements and obstruction charges. Three prominent Trump critics have been hit with criminal charges. Now, what's going on here? According to the Reuters news agency, a U.S. judge found on Monday that there is evidence of misconduct in how a federal prosecutor closely aligned with President Donald Trump secured criminal charges against James Comey and ordered that grand jury materials be turned over to the former FBI chief's defense lawyers. Alexandria, Virginia-based U.S. Magistrate Judge William Fitzgerald found that Lindsey Halligan, the Trump-appointed U.S. attorney leading the case, may have made significant legal errors in presenting evidence and instructing grand jurors who were weighing whether to charge Comey mistakes that could have tainted the case. The judge said, quote, "The record points to a disturbing pattern of profound investigative mishaps that led an FBI agent and a prosecutor to potentially undermine the integrity of the grand jury proceeding," end quote, Fitzgerald wrote in his ruling. And why is this important? When individuals are charged before a grand jury, and a grand jury is nothing more than individuals made up who could be potential jurors, and basically it's a jury in itself. And the prosecutors like to make their case behind closed doors before a grand jury. Now, I don't want you to take my word for it. I'm going to define what a grand jury is and what it is not. I don't like to make things up. So I want to know, like you do, what is a grand jury and what is the purpose of a grand jury? think it's citizens. Oh, here it is. Now, this is what a grand jury is. Quote, a grand jury is a group of citizens that hears evidence from a prosecutor to determine if there is probable cause to bring criminal charges against an individual. Unlike a trial jury, a grand jury does not decide guilt or innocence, but decides whether to issue an indictment, which is a formal accusation. So prosecutors convene with a group of citizens behind closed doors, and they present their case or so-called case in terms of what they think they can get away with. So a grand jury's primary role is to review evidence in felony cases to determine if a criminal prosecution will proceed. If they find sufficient evidence, they issue an indictment. All federal felonies require a grand jury indictment, though a defendant can waive his right. Now, if the prosecutors break the law during the course of the grand jury investigation, then the prosecutors have to answer for them to who? To the judge presiding over the case, must answer for why they deliberately misled a grand jury in an attempt to get an indictment against an individual or individuals. So how does a grand jury work? Grand jury proceedings are held in private, and witnesses take an oath of secrecy before testifying, because the prosecutors don't want the individuals to be made known. How many people have been falsely accused by grand juries and have been arrested, charged, prosecuted, indicted, found guilty? And then these same prosecutors don't like to turn over alleged evidence to the defense attorneys, citing prosecutorial privilege. Well, guess what? A judge doesn't see it that way. So the judge says, you know what? There's some erroneous and serious errors that are taking place when it comes to the case of the former FBI director, James Comey. You know, James Comey has said he is willing to testify, he wants to testify, and he has said that he's not going to back down. Just because somebody's been indicted doesn't mean that they're guilty. You know, in this day and age that we're living in, every case seemingly is trying to be tried through the media, through social media, on the internet, through fake AI juries, fake AI lying juries, through talking heads, so-called legal analysts. They like to taint a potential jury pool, and that's the reason why Sean Diddy Combs right now was not found guilty on the most serious and egregious charges, because the prosecutors got it wrong. Now, I'm not here talking about his guilt or innocence. I'm not trying to justify anything that Mr. Combs has done in the past. I'm only talking about the legality that led up to the trial of Mr. Combs. The prosecutors got it wrong. And when you get it wrong, you're going to find out that you're going to have to pay for the wrongs. That's why the jury did not find him guilty on all the so-called serious charges. Let me look at this left-wing media, whatever, man. I ain't got no time for that foolishness. It's too early in the video. You know, if you don't like being over here, get off the page, go someplace else. That's what I'm going to tell you. I don't have time for your stupidity and your ignorance today. You know, the so-called right-wing, racist, bigoted media over there at the Racist and Bigoted Network, all they do is lie all the time, egregiously. Tell outright lies 24 hours a day, perpetuated through a never-ending cycle of propaganda. All day and all night, trying to bolster their false claims against anybody that's not a MAGA Republican. And they do it through the so-called right-wing media. They do it on their podcasts. They do it on their telecasts. They do it on their news cycles. They do it through radio. And then when somebody voices an opinion of opposition against them, I don't care what you call me. You can call me left, right, in between. It doesn't matter. Right is right and wrong is wrong. Just because somebody is Republican, that doesn't make them right. And just because someone is a Democrat or an independent or a socialist, that does not make them wrong. This is where too many people get it twisted with their dim-witted views and their political ideologies, thinking they know so much with their news bites that they get from where? From X, from Twitter, from TikTok, from Instagram. They won't read the Wall Street Journal. They won't read the New York Times. They won't read news periodicals and become familiar with what's really going on. They rely on the bites that they get, and then they run with it. And that's how a lot of people are judged falsely. And these are the potential people, the jurors, who are selected and sit in judgment of somebody. If you're going to judge somebody in the court of law, make sure you get it right the first time. Because there are too many innocent men and women who have been wrongfully charged, wrongfully arrested, wrongfully prosecuted, and wrongfully sitting in prison. Because nobody wants to hear about that. Unless it's happening to somebody in your family, or your friends, or your neighborhood. Then the whole world has to stop. Because it's somebody that you know. Well, I'm going to be for what is right. I don't care about, you listen, ain't nothing wrong with the Rainbow Coalition. If you got a problem with it, then you have a problem with it. Reverend Jesse Jackson is the one who coined the phrase Rainbow Coalition. It has nothing to do with the LGBTQ plus community. Get your facts straight, Frank. All right, let's get down to it. Comey is one of 3 prominent critics of the Republican president to have been hit with criminal charges by Trump's Justice Department in recent months. Trump's critics have described the charges as part of a campaign by the president to chill opposition. Comey pleaded not guilty after being charged in September with making false statements and obstructing a congressional investigation. Well, how about this? Why is it that during the insurrection that occurred, they got away with the crimes that they committed? Because if a bunch of black people had done the same things that this mob, these hooligans and these thugs did, every last one of those black people would have been arrested and tried with treason in the first degree. And they would never see the light of day again. So don't tell me that there aren't 2 judicial systems within America. And some of those same people who have been pardoned graciously by President Trump are out there and still committing crimes, thinking that it's okay to do so. And James Comey has a right to plead not guilty. That's his constitutional right. It seems like I'm asking you, is the case falling apart? What's going on with the James Comey case, the former FBI chief? Is it falling apart? Has he been falsely accused? Is there real, viable, credible evidence to contradict what the judge's ruling is? Or is this, quote unquote, a witch hunt? So what's going on here? And Comey is not taking this thing lying down, and he's not taking it lightly. A different judge previously expressed skepticism about the legality of Halligan's appointment, while other courts have raised alarm about political motivations in Justice Department investigations and grand juries have rejected cases tied to Trump's police surge in Washington. The only people that I see, and I'm reading about this being charged, are anybody who's Democrat. I don't see any Republicans being charged for anything or any wrongdoing whatsoever. Halligan had not worked as a prosecutor before Trump appointed her in September. She had primarily practiced real estate law and represented Trump in civil litigation. So she practiced real estate law and represented the president in civil litigation. A Justice Department spokesperson declined to comment on the judge's decision. Prosecutors quickly sought to pause the order to turn over grand jury material and claimed in a court ruling that Fitzpatrick, quote, may have misrepresented some facts, end quote. Well, if the facts, what do you mean misrepresented? Is perjury going on here? Was it a rush to judgment? Because it seems like this case is going to fall apart. That's what it appears to be. Seems like the case may fall apart. James Comey has sought to get the charges against him dismissed. That ain't happening. Saying the prosecution resulted from Trump's, quote, personal spite, end quote, against him over his criticism of the president and his leadership of an investigation in contact between Trump's 2016 campaign and Russians. Trump has threatened to improvision rivals since he first ran for president in 2015. Comey's indictment was followed by indictments of two other prominent Trump critics, his former national security advisor John Bolton and New York State Attorney General Letitia James. The charges in these three cases breached a long-standing Justice Department practice of political independence in criminal investigations. I don't think the case against New York State Attorney General Letitia James is going to stand. I really don't. Because this is all based upon falsification, something to do with a mortgage application, et cetera, et cetera. Let me ask you a question, ladies and gentlemen. And let's get serious here for a moment. How many corrupt politicians are in Washington, D.C. right now and getting away with white-collar crimes? Think about it for a moment. Prosecutors allege that Comey lied to a Senate committee in 2020 when he said he stood behind prior testimony that he had not authorized anyone at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about investigations in Trump and his 2016 rival Democrat Hillary Clinton. Well, this is up to the prosecutors to prove that the ominous source was not credible. How come every time right now somebody within the current administration says an anonymous source, an anonymous source, an anonymous source on the condition of anonymity, refuse to comment, refuse to be interviewed, refuse to talk about litigation or pending litigation? The FBI director had every right not to reveal his sources. That's what the free press is all about. Free press is about individuals having the right to talk to credible sources without revealing their identity. And most credible journalists, they'll go to prison before they give up their sources. Fitzgerald said he would order prosecutors to turn over grand jury materials to Comey's defense for use in a potential future legal motion to have the charges dismissed. That's Comey's right. Grand jury materials are typically protected by strict security rules. Fitzgerald acknowledged that disclosure to the defense was an, quote, extraordinary remedy, end quote, but found that Comey had shown a specific need for the records. Quote, the court finds the record in this case requires the full disclosure of grand jury materials, end quote, the judge wrote. Now, prosecuting former FBI Director James Comey is not like prosecuting somebody from the hood. And there's a big differentiation between the two. And too many individuals go through life thinking that your judicial system is all fun and games because of the pigmentation and the color of their skin, and they think that their whiteness is going to get them off the hook. And then when you come stand before black judges, and if a black judge rules against somebody white, then they want to holler racial discrimination when the judge follows the letter of the law. Preferential treatment is given to the wealthy and the powerful and the privileged in the court of law. And individuals who are not affluent, who are not privileged, who do not have connections, they get the worst of the criminal justice prosecutorial measures all the time. I see it all the time. I read about it all the time. And just because some of you all don't like what you hear, it doesn't mean that it's wrong. I listen to lying news coming from the racist and bigoted network all the time, and I know they're lying. I know their sources are not credible, and I know they're just making up stuff as they go along. Quote, this is the judge talking. In so finding, the court recognizes this is an extraordinary remedy, but given the factually based challenges the defense has raised to the government's conduct and the prospect that government misconduct may have tainted the grand jury proceedings, disclosure of grand jury materials under these unique circumstances is necessary to protect the rights of the accused, end quote. So Comey feels as though that his constitutional rights have been egregiously violated. And he believes the grand jury notes of testimony are essential to his defense, and that he has a right to know what's going on. Fitzgerald's ruling catalogs a series of what the judge described as investigative blunders in the investigation. Many times, in a rush to judgment, the police get it wrong. Many times, in a rush to judgment, the prosecutors, the ADAs get it wrong. And a lot of innocent people go to prison, and y'all don't care. Because as long as you can believe what you hear coming from the so-called news media, it makes you feel better about yourself, and you're probably committing worse crimes than those where people have been falsely accused of. So the judge said there are blunders. These include prosecutors' decision to review evidence the FBI seized years earlier without securing a new warrant and allowing an FBI agent to testify to the grand jury, even though the agent may have been exposed to material shielded by attorney-client privilege. That's an important thing right there. If somebody was given information related to attorney-client privilege, that person and the lawyer could be charged very seriously. A legal doctrine that protects legal advice between lawyers and their clients. The judge also found that Halligan made statements to grand jurors harmful to Comey's legal rights. So, what do you think? Is there something going on here? Or where there's smoke in their fire at the same time? So, do you think that the judge's ruling in the Comey case is justified or unwarranted? Tyrone Bowman, never surrender, never quit. Is your mother wearing a wig? So let's ask that question. Is your mother wearing a wig? I don't pay you folks no mind. I'll see you in the next video. Peace. I'm out.